Hey guys, really quickly, I did just want to hop in here before the episode and let you know that Tim and I end up rambling for a very long time, about 20 minutes before we really get into the lore section of this episode. So if that is something that you are really not interested in, the time stamp to skip ahead to the actual content will be on screen as well as in the description. But also, if it is something you're maybe more interested in hearing more of, us going like maybe a bit more discussion based early on in the podcast as opposed to just mostly lore, let us know. But thank you guys for watching and enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 22nd episode of Tides of Lore. My name is Robert Silva. I am one half of your host team, joined as always by my good friend Tim. How we doing today, Tim?
I'm pretty good, Rob. I came to a crossroads in my life. Let me tell you, man. I made a big decision. I switched my main character, the Blood Elf Paladin, to Alliance, and
That's right, baby.
yeah. And I don't know if it's because this show has opened up my eyes to the atrocities of the Horde, or I mean, I've played Alliance in the past, and I'm not just on any Alliance server. I'm on Moonguard, and it's a vibe, dude. People on Moonguard, they play the game to have fun, and like a good role-playing, like a good role-playing server should. Like, you're just walking through the city of Stormwind, and I'm seeing cool ass shit, man. I'm also, dude, there's Horde trying to gank people with PvP turned on in Stormwind too. It's just like the cool, just small things that you get on Moonguard you do not get on other servers. And I tried playing on the Horde equivalent. It's called Wormrest Accord, and it did not feel alive. Everyone's just in the Valley of Honor, and then there's just this one little corner in Orgrimmar that everyone hangs out with, and I was just like, dude, this isn't fun. But I go on to Moonguard, of course, Goldshire that's popping, but outside of Goldshire, inside Stormwind, and it's just like, it is crazy how alive it feels. And I made the plunge, man. I was like, fuck it, I think the breaking point was queuing for PvP, man. I was just sitting in my queues, and I'm like just staring at people in this little corner in Wormrest Accord in the Valley of Honor, and I'm like, this is boring, dude. So I switched to Alliance. That's what I've been doing this week.
Welcome to the winning team, brother.
I mean, yeah, and like I said, this podcast kind of opened my eyes. It's more alive. You also, in PvP, Night Elves are broken. You have Shadow Meld.
I was gonna say, I hear Shadow Meld's really crazy right now.
Yeah, dude. Even not for like stealth classes, you can Shadow Meld a Chaos Bolt, right?
Yeah.
It's broken. It's broken. So yeah, I'm Alliance, man. I got a lot of people to switch to Alliance too. Bub's making characters on Alliance. I got Johnny Clash making a character. I got Swiper making a character. Not that I got him, but like they just saw I'm playing Alliance, and they're like, "Fuck it, we ball,"
See,
yeah.
after you started rolling Alliance in this latest classic, I'm like, this is the first step. This is it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I wanted to switch it up in Classic. I mean, Stormwind's just the better city, and you're not in a hut in fucking the desert. There's actual like order and like cool things going on. Just buildings, architecture,
buildings that are different from each other. Yeah,
civilized.
One of the things I always come back to that I really love about Stormwind, and it's a small thing by comparison to Orgrimmar, is the portal room. Just going into the portal room in Stormwind feels like a magical room. It feels like you're walking into this like tiny tower, and then it's just this massive space that's impossibly large inside. And that just feels like somewhere that's actually magic. I'm not just walking into a hole in the ground that has a bunch of portals in it.
Yeah, it's the little things like that. But also the remake since Cataclysm. So I've been playing it in Classic, right? Of course, I've gotten to 60 on hardcore on a gnome mage. I've gotten to 60 on regular playing on the human paladin. But just like seeing the stuff that has changed since Cataclysm, dude, the throne room, going to it, the fountain that's there, a variant, dude, that is sick.
My king.
It is so, dude. I'm just running through. I got the rank 14 armor because I got RBGs, and I'm wearing that walking through Stormwind, and I feel like a fucking badass, dude. And I don't feel the same vibe on Horde. But also other places like, dude, Westfall, just like leveling. I made a rogue too, a night elf rogue, because I wanted shadow meld and shit. I got him to level 70 in like 2 days.
Yes, sir.
But leveling through the alliance zones from the remade Cataclysm, I've never done this stuff. Like Westfall, I was like, holy shit. I went to fucking, not Theramore, Menethil Harbor. It's literally flooded. I was like, I'd never guessed that. There's tornadoes going on in Darkshore. It's just, I don't know. There's
the
cool leveling
Darkshore. We're going to talk more about this, but that is probably like the biggest feat Malfurion has in like the actual game itself, is that Darkshore questing experience. It's said that he's actually holding Darkshore from falling into the ocean.
Yeah, no. So I did that questing experience, and like at a certain point, like I forget what happens, but there's an overarching storyline where Malfurion, you're helping him like hold together Darkshore, but then some shit hits the fan, and he's like, fuck, I need a dip. And he's like, champion, I leave it to you. And then you're just
you're staring
like,
down this wind god, and you're like, okay, got it, Malfurion.
But yeah, man, it's nice. Alliance is nice, man. I never thought I would be an Alliance sympathizer, but here I am.
Well, and what's crazy for me is that I started Mists of Pandaria, so when I very first started, I think pretty much a ton of Stormwind was still all blown up and damaged and stuff, and I was like, dang, this place is kind of ass. And then I, had a bit of a break between Mists and WoD and Legion. By the time I came back for Legion, and they have Lion's Rest and stuff like that, which I'm not going to spoil what that is, but my gosh, I love Stormwind. Stormwind is my favorite city. And
the music. The music, dude, I'm just singing. I don't even know what the fuck they're saying. I just make it up, dude. But every time I log in and that music is going, I gotta start singing, Yeah,
I love Stormwind. I wish that they would do more city stuff. Like, as much as it's fun to go to these new cities and these new zones and stuff like that, I feel like a lot of the stuff from the old world, we've lost the ability. Like, cause I used to love, when I play Horde, to go to Undercity. Undercity was my favorite. I love the vibe of Undercity.
Yeah.
I can't even go there now, and even if I do, there's no one there.
You just gotta go back in time. You gotta talk to the person and say, hey, I want to see this from the past. But I think a lot of people have nostalgia, like World of Warcraft. It's in the name, right? The world is the main character. And I think people want that. And there's speculation of what's going to happen. But speculation is next expansion. What is it? Midnight. That like Azeroth gets consumed by the void. And like maybe we're going back to old world zones, Westfall or whatever. And it's the void has taken over, kind of like Cataclysm,
I will say that
it's a rumor.
Yeah, I think, I don't know how I feel about that. It's not that I'm against it. I just feel like that would leave that. I mean, a lot of people don't like Cataclysm for what they did to the zones and stuff. And as much as I love playing Classic and stuff like that, like, and people want to try and tell me like Red Ridge Mountains was so much better back in the day. It really kind of wasn't, in my opinion, at least. It was kind of dull. It was kind of empty, and now it's completely changed. And there are zones that I do miss their like original versions, like Ashenvale. I loved Ashenvale in Classic, but I mean, how many times do you realistically run the Ashenvale quest line before you're like, maybe I want to do something else, right?
Exactly. And that's why leveling in the Cataclysm zones that I've never done on Alliance side is refreshing. What I think they should do, they've already kind of implemented this so far, right? We talked about Undercity, how you could talk to the person and see it in a different timeline. They should keep bring in the classic zones, right? And you can go to you just talk to a person and see it pre-Cataclysm, or you can talk to it and see it in Cataclysm, or when Midnight comes, that you could talk to it and see it in the Midnight form. That's what I think they should do. That way they have all the old zones for nostalgic purposes.
And I feel like a lot of people kind of had that mindset. I definitely agree. But I mean, before 2019, they were constantly being like, yeah, all those zones, we don't even have the files for any of that shit anymore. So, well, now you do. So you can do that.
Exactly.
So
that was really long-winded. That was what I've been doing. Yes. What about you, Big Dog?
That's great. I've had a pretty chaotic week. I've just been editing the podcast. I've been trying to grind in WoW when I can. I've been what did I specifically do? I'm trying to think. Been doing a lot of BFA stuff because, as you have heard with this 11.1.5 patch, they're going to be bringing in like a bunch of changes, or at least a temporary buff for the previous reputations in Dragonflight and some changes to Shadowlands. So I've been trying to work on the stuff that's not getting changed so that I can get those mounts, get my transmog up, and then move into those when the patch hits on the 22nd. But at the same time, it does feel bad because, like you even mentioned when I was doing my horrific visions, you're like, I think that they're gonna just bring back those same mountains, that backpack.
Yeah,
they did, and not only did they do that, it's cheaper than when I just did it. It's like half the price.
I warned you, dude. I warned you. I don't know why you. I was like, bro, they're gonna bring all that shit back. There's no way they don't.
In fairness, now I don't have to worry about grinding that stuff on a modern
No, you
character.
do. You do, because the helm enchant is going to be broken, and you want KSM. So,
well, that's not what I meant. I meant the like I won't have to grind for that mount. I won't have to get the coins or whatever, the currency for that stuff. I can just work on the new stuff.
oh, there'll be new mounts. Don't worry.
Yeah. Been doing that. Been reading this book that we're going to talk about today, the Night of the Dragon, and yeah, I mean, I just kind of been chilling.
I'm excited about this book. We're talking. I mean, I don't want to spoil anything too much, but the Nexus War is something I know very little about.
Yes.
When you think about the Wrath of the Lich King, Nexus War is not the first thing that comes to my mind, though. I mean, it is one of the first raids. So you had Nax come out, and then I think after that you had the Nexus raid, right?
The Eye, yeah.
The Eye of Eternity. Eye of Eternity.
The Oculus, yeah.
Well, no, that's the dungeon, or am I wrong?
I couldn't remember. I remember.
I swear that's the dungeon, and then the Eye of Eternity is the raid.
I'm gonna assume that you're right. I know that it takes place in the Eye of Eternity. I just don't know if that's like what it's called. But yeah, I know that is where it takes place. But yeah, it's gonna be a good time. We're gonna talk about new expansion, new dragon type, new stuff. And I know, Tim, you love dragons, right?
Dragging these. Sorry.
All right. But yeah, that's what's going on with us. We're going to get into some of the comments from last week, and then we will get hopped into this episode. We do have a pretty beefy episode, and we did kind of talk through that intro for a good amount of time, so we got some pretty short comments today. But first things first, we did have Barodia 365 over on TikTok saying, I've become mega excited for Tuesday now, thanks to y'all. Maybe you guys covered this in the episode, but do you know why Garrosh was named War Chief and not Karen Bloodhoof? Because Thrall's my guy, and I feel like he could have at least seen something coming. And
it's because he's an orc. It's because he's an orc. You gotta keep it in the bloodline, you know?
That is what I told him. I was like, honestly, it's because he's an orc. And in fairness, I feel like when you go to Orgrimmar and you see a majority of the horde, it seems to be led by orcs, at least during this time frame. So it does make sense, but at the same time, it's in my opinion, Thrall's biggest blunder. And I mean, I think it's kind of easy to say that, right? Like, because Thrall's like super good, happy guy all the time. This is unquestionably his biggest mistake when he makes Garrosh War Chief, just because he's an orc. And even if he was an orc, like, Sourfang could have been War Chief. Sourfang would have been a way better War Chief. Tons of people. They fucking make Nazgrim the War Chief.
How is there any evidence of the age that Garrosh was when he became War Chief?
Not like evidence, but
he was young, right?
He was
compared to Sourfang. He was young.
Yeah, he was born on Outland. He was about the age of Sourfang's son, Dranosh. So when you see him in Wrath of the Lich King, they're about around the same age. Because both of them were left on Outland just as the first horde was leaving through the portal. So they're probably in their 20s, and that's maybe early 30s.
Like, I wonder what the youngest president in the U.S. we've had. I don't want to get political, but just like pragmatic, like thinking about like age of presidents, right? Most presidents we have are pretty old, right? Because they, in theory, should have more wisdom. So to give the power to Garrosh, who's that young, I don't know, man. That's kind of a curveball.
I'm going to also look this up because I'm not sure if I'm going to make a fool out of myself, but I'm pretty sure you have to be at least 40 years old to run for president.
I thought it was younger than that. I think it's 35. I could be wrong. But
You're correct. You're absolutely correct. And you need to have
No.
lived here for 14 years. But yeah, that was our first comment. We absolutely agree with you. I think Karen should have been, me personally, Karen absolutely is the ideal candidate for a war chief. He is a warrior just like everyone else in the Horde, but he's, wise. He's actually led for years already. So Karen,
maybe
fuck it, give Vol'jin it anyway. Like anyone else, like these people built the Horde with you. Why are you giving it to this random kid?
Well,
Anyway.
what if there's a crazy theory? Just spitballing right now. What if a thrall wanted the Horde to fail? What if he knew what was going to happen?
Thrall is a dreadlord.
I don't know, man. Like, to make that kind of decision, I mean, I get it. He's a pure orc. He's an embodiment of an orc, but he's too damn young to run the Horde. And look what he did. He did a lot of. He didn't think about any of the decisions he made. He just kind of did whatever he thought in his gut was right. But he was young. He didn't think anything out.
Well, and he was just a warrior. Like, if he had some sort of like devout understanding of the universe or something like that, if he was a shaman or even anything, a mage, I don't fucking know. I don't even remember what orcs could be back in the day. I think it's just rogues, warriors, and shamans. But he would have been at least had some deeper understanding. But bonk man go bonk. So
Yeah, he should have been like a general, like a war general, and then like Sarfang.
And he was a great war general, and that's
exactly
why he gets the position. But not every great war general is necessarily a great political leader. So
yep.
We did also have, I'm going to say this is Bexebeche. I'm not going to try and pronounce it. That's how it's spelled. And he also had something to throw on that Garrosh conversation that we were just having. And he says, so the moral of the story is some people should just stay in inner conflict. And yeah, like I said, I think we're all kind of at the table here agreeing that maybe would have been the more preferable outcome in this timeline. And then lastly, we did have Jared5636 on our short about the Second War and Turalian saying, sounds like that dude just cast Benediction, but isn't that a priest thing? And I said, yeah, that is, but I guess in all fairness, Turalian was a priest before he became a paladin, and I guess he's just kind of the original class hopper like Anduin, right? He's just like, I'm done being a priest. Or
yeah,
maybe I'll just
Anduin
do a class.
He can kind of do whatever he wants, huh? He wears plate armor and he's a priest. He's a paladin at this point, right? Or
that's what. He's never taken like an oath, so I can't really say he's a paladin. But I mean, he holds a radiant weapon. He's literally basically like a champion of the light. He's theorized to be like prophesized by Velen to be the champion of the light when it comes to facing off against the Void Lords and all that shit. So
he's never popped wings.
Never popped wings. Pop mass res.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess he is more of a priest, but
yeah.
I think we skipped over what we talked about last time.
Oh yeah.
Just real quick. It was basically the forming. It was the Death Knight starting zone back in Wrath of the Lich King. What we talked about. You becoming a Death Knight, seeing the atrocities that they do, and then eventually being like, you know what? This might not be for me.
Kill your best friend and you're just like, maybe I don't want to do this.
And then Ashbringer a little bit. What else?
Purification of the Ashbringer. We talked about Thessarian, the kind of iconic Death Knight. You seem to have known it. I don't know who this character was before I read that comic. So
yeah, dude, he's one of the OGs. He always dual wields, I think. So I don't know if he would technically be Frost or what, but yeah, he's badass.
We talked about him and
the Scarlet Onslaught talked about too a little bit.
Yeah, the Scarlet Crusade kind of fleeing from their location in Tyr's Hand and making their way up to Northrend to start their own little crusade against the Lich King and Undead and the Path of Insanity. We also talked about them once again becoming infiltrated by a Dreadlord. This time, the one known as Mal'Ganis, who previously was killed by Arthas and is now back.
You know what's funny is I was doing some Dark Moon Fair, and there is actually, if you get the old Scarlet Crusade tabard, you wear it. There's a person you can talk to at the Dark Moon Fair and buy more Scarlet Crusade transmog.
Whoa.
When you talk to them, there's a little chat bubble, and you say, "You're not a dreadlord, are you?" And they kind of laugh it off. They don't
Just
answer. Yeah, yeah, and I thought that was super funny. And that's why I like this podcast, man. It's because like dude, I have what? How many hours did I send you? Just the other day, I have
349 days, dude.
Yeah, I have 349 days played on all my characters, and it just like learning about the lore. It's cool because like I just play the game to play the game. I want the cool transmog. I want a PvP, And now I'm like talking to people at the Dark Moon Fair, and I'm like, oh, that's funny. And I never would have, connected these dots and shit.
Well, and I mean, without knowing the lore, you go, like you even said in Westfall, like you see a Vanessa Van Cleef, and you're like, I have no idea who that is. But when you know the lore, at least on a bit more than an in-depth level, it's like, hey,
I know
the daughter of Edwin.
I played Classic. I knew that because you hear Van Cleef, and you're like, oh shit, I killed that motherfucker. He's the last boss. But yeah, other stuff, yes.
But I mean, even just the whole founding of the Defias Brotherhood and everything like that, and how it pertains to the rebuilding of Stormwind and everything. It's
sure.
It's awesome. So, but yeah, that's what we discussed last week, and this week, like we said a while ago, we're gonna be moving into some dragon stuff, including the Nexus War in the Wrath of the Lich King. So, let's just hop into that. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Tides of Lore on YouTube, or if you're on Spotify, leave us a 5-star rating. It really helps the channel and ensures you won't miss a moment of this adventure. Now let's get started. So, before we do get directly into the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, there is something that we need to talk about, and this is really only detailed in the Chronicle, but it does give us some detail about how some of the area of Northrend comes to be. And that is, all that time ago, 10,000 years ago, the Sundering, the War of the Ancients, all that, right? You still had all of these Highborn. And these Highborn went up to the area of Northrend before all of Azeroth had fractured and everything. And they were in this forest called the Moonsong Forest. And their kind of whole thing that they did up there for the Highborn is they collected these magical artifacts. And they kind of kept them in like what I would assume is like a library, basically, or a museum. And they go up there and they see these blue dragons. And they're like, wow, these blue dragons are really magically powerful. And they witness them like turn creatures into raw magical essence and like use it to cast spells and stuff like that. And they're like, wow, that seems really cool. I think we should do that too. So they're like, how do we get this power? This is, a few thousand years after they originally were up there and the Sundering occurs and everything. So now they're kind of isolated up there with no way to, I wouldn't say no way to get back. It just doesn't seem like they're like, I guess we're not going back.
Aren't they mages? Can't they just teleport?
That's a really good point. I guess not. But yeah, logically, I feel like they should just be able to teleport. But yeah, they're stuck up there. And they see these blue dragons, and they're like, I have a great idea. What if we go into the dragon's main base, that place that we talked about back in the Outland episode with the dragons, the Nexus, and we see if we can steal the information about how to turn things into crystal and consume them as magical essence. And they're like, yeah, good idea. They go to the Nexus. And as they go into the Nexus, they steal this information. And it is like, okay, cool. Successful operation. They didn't even know we were here. These damn Highborn, they can't help themselves, though, because they see some magical artifacts in there. And they're like, well, don't mind me. They grab some of these magical artifacts and they steal them from the blue dragons. And it sets off basically an alarm, a magic alarm for the blue dragons. And they run away. They're like, yeah, that's a problem. So they run away. They go back to the Moonsong Forest. And they're like, all right, well, I guess the dragons are coming. And they're probably going to try and kill all of us. So I think we should use this new information that we have about how to create magical crystals, and then we can use it to fight back against them. And they're like, yeah, good idea. So they begin to prepare to cast this massive spell. And as all these blue dragons arrive to come fuck them up, they realize that they're casting the spell, and they're like, oh, actually, I think we're just going to let you guys do this, because I don't know if you realize just how crazy you're being with this right now. And they don't, because they gather atop this cliff that's overlooking the forest, and they intend to only crystallize like a small portion of the trees to use it, and instead pump it to 120%, completely crystallizes the entire forest, as well as any living creatures, including themselves, in this area.
Wait, is this the forest below Dalaran?
the Crystalsong Forest.
Yeah, that's that same forest, right?
And that's how it becomes the Crystalsong Forest. That's why there's all these spirits that are walking around. They're essentially raw magical essence.
Oh, they are night elf
that disappeared.
Well, I guess Highborn, not night, because not technically night elf, but they are Highborn. I never put that together.
So, yep, they're instantly shattered. Their spirits remain trapped in the area, and the entire forest turns to like these glowing, radiant crystal trees. And this is how it's born. And that's just important information to know because, like I said, it's kind of an important part of the area of Northrend. But there is also that fucking Fandral guy that we talked about, fuck Fandral, who did go up to Northrend with the intention of planting all these trees to prevent the spread of Serenite from the old god, Yogg-Saron. And he ends up planting one of these trees in Crystalsong Forest, which also crystallizes. And it doesn't seem to have anything like crazy about it. It does turn into one of those super big trees, but it just glows. And I think it's awesome.
No, wait, so it's not a life tree or world tree?
It's not a world tree, but it's one of those great trees. So it has like a connection to the Emerald Dream, like the other ones we kind of talked about, like in Feralis and stuff like that.
Is there something guarding? I don't remember a world boss guarding it.
I don't think so. I also don't know if it even has like a gateway like that. It might be like too corrupted by arcane energy to get into the spirit realm, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's going on up in Crystalsong a really long time ago. And the blue dragons are like, mortal races are kind of fucking stupid, guys. And we'll get back to that after we get into the next story. Because there's other stuff going on in the world. Specifically, there's other stuff going on in the world with the black dragons. The black dragon, Sinestra, who we did not really talk about, but we did briefly mention in the Deathwing episode, is the prime consort of Deathwing, or at least she was, before she kind of got into this beef with the Kirin Tor, tried to destroy Dalaran, and got fucking killed for it, or at least thought was killed, and then she kind of fakes her own death so she can get away from Deathwing, because she doesn't like him anyway. But she is also insane, because she's a black dragon, and that's just how they be. And she is trying to create a new dragonflight. Hey, this sounds familiar. So, with the help of this high elf, I think he's a blood elf, technically. With the help of this blood elf, they do manage to get a hold of one of those nether drakes. If you remember, we also talked about one of these nether drakes by the name of Zuraku. And he was kind of like the leader. He's the one who spoke with Tiragosa and was initially kind of like going back and forth on whether he even wanted to fight with the blue dragons. And he was the only survivor after Malygos wakes up and just consumes all of them. And he gets captured by this elf in this magical box. And this elf takes it over to Sinestra, who is kind of like his demon patron in a way. Not demon, but like evil patron, I guess you would just say, because he's kind of consumed with wanting power. And we'll get more into him. And he's like, here, I think we can use this creature to make a new dragonflight of our own. And she's like, good idea. I like that. Let's work on it. So they begin to basically create a new type of dragon by draining the essence of the nether, as well as mixing it with, like, obviously the other, like, kind of regular magics of the dragons. So we'll get into what that creates. But obviously, this is already setting off a lot of alarm bells. There's those red dragons who make it their whole point to protect life, and they're hearing about crazy shit going on at Grim Batol, and they're like, ugh, nothing good has ever happened at Grim Batol. So they send out Crassus, who we have talked about a pretty good amount at this point. Coriol, Stress, whatever you want to call him. We call him Crassus because it's easy. And he's like, hey, Alexstrasza, I'm going to go check out the place that they had you captured for all those years. Because I'm pretty sure they're getting up to some fuck shit again. And she's like, cool, go do that. And as he's flying over there, he encounters another dragon. This one's a blue dragon who is actually sent by Malygos, because Malygos is like, yeah, there's definitely some crazy shit going on in there. And we know him as well. This is Malygos. We spoke about him in the Sunwell episode. And he's like, hey, troubling stuff going on over at the fortress. It's definitely time to get over there and check it out. So they go, both of them. It says, as they approach Grim Batol, disguised as elves, they're just suddenly overcome with debilitating magical shock. And it says that it's supposedly the lingering energies from the ancient curse linked to the dragon soul, right? And I'm just like, that's really weird. I don't buy that. But okay, cool. Whatever. Sure, that happens. So they kind of fall unconscious. And That's where it kind of cuts back to being within Grim Batol, and it's when we realize who this blood elf is. And I've never heard of this person before this event. I believe he's in one other comic from my research, but this is a man by the name of Zendarian.
I've never heard of him. Wait, Windrunner?
Windrunner. Yeah.
Ties to Sylvanas?
Cousin to the sisters.
I was going to say, I thought they only had one brother. Well, interesting.
So, yep, he's after the fall of the Quel'Thalas and all that, he kind of went completely off the rails. He was already a mage before that, but afterwards he's just like, wow, Fel's awesome. Wow, the Twilight cult is awesome. And he just, he fully drinks the Kool-Aid of power. And that's how he ends up in the service to Sinestra. She's like, yeah, things are going really well in here. We're making those dragons like we were planning to. And that's when you do see this new creature that they've created. And they're what are known as the Twilight Dragons. And I'm just going to call them Void Dragons, basically. I mean, I think there are actual Void Dragons later down the line, but they are essentially just regular dragons imbued with shadow energy. And it wasn't said that when
It wasn't Deathwing who made it first?
No.
Interesting. You hear about his experiments and everything, and it just always seems like that was a Deathwing thing.
Yep. And it seems like she might be trying to make this, because like I said, she hates him, and he even supposedly thinks she's dead. I think that he's a bit smarter than that, but he's like, yeah, I'll just let you do your thing. And I kind of have this theory that she's just like, I'm trying to one-up him. I'm trying to succeed where he failed, because they had the chromatic flight, right? And that shit really didn't go anywhere. So they're working on their dragon. Back outside, you have both of the dragons waking up, and they're like, what's going on? And they look up and they see this Draenei, a priestess by the name of Iridi. And she has this like magical staff. And just to make it clear, this magical staff is imbued with a crystal from Anaru itself. So it's a pretty sick weapon. And I also love it because she can just like phase it out of existence and then like summon it to her hand, like bound weapon from D&D whenever she feels the need to. So I love that. And she wakes them up. She's like, hey, notice you guys were sleeping here. What's that about? And they're like, oh, yeah, we're going to go check out Grim Batol because there's terrible things going on over there. And she's like, yeah, I'm also going to go check out Grim Batol.
Oh, really?
So apparently that place that's permanently shadow cursed is not the nicest place for the light.
We've talked about Grim Batol in many episodes. It's crazy how reoccurring it is.
And so with this, they all three of them begin to head over there. And I'm pretty sure she kind of innately knows that they're dragons. Like, even though they're kind of in their human forms or their elf forms or whatever you want to say, she's like, you guys are hiding that you're dragons. And that's not too important, but it does just kind of indicate how wise she is, at least. And as they begin to head into Grim Batol, it is made clearer and clearer that Ziraku's essence is just being continuously drained into this Darganax figure that is a Twilight Dragon, creating this, like, monstrosity, really. Like, it's when they actually do encounter it, even though Crassus is like a 12,000-year-old dragon or something like that, because he was alive during the War of the Ancients. This dragon's way bigger than him, and this dragon's like 6 months old. So, yeah, experiments on Sinestra's side are going a lot better. And that's where they make their way in. They begin to traverse through these caves that are just littered with dragon bones and the Orcish remains from the War of the Three Hammers and all that stuff that has already gone down, and the Battle of Grim Batol with Alexstrasza. And as they're making their way in there, Sinestra's like, there are people coming for us, but it's fine. We're going to capture them, and we're going to also feed them to the dragon. And Zendarian is like, okay, cool, let's get ready. So as they go in there, they encounter dragon spawn of the black dragon, so kind of like we mentioned with the Onyxia stuff. And they also encounter these creatures known as the Scaradin. And the Scaradin aren't too important in this story, but they are relevant later down the line. So I did want to mention them. They're kind of like dwarves, but they've been like completely corrupted by void energy in a way that they literally like sprint on all fours like rabid animals. It says that they're more animal than living creature, sentient creature at this point.
I mean, you see them they're in the Rookery and other dungeons. I personally haven't seen them running on all fours. Maybe they retcon something, but you see them in the War Within. I have a trinket from them.
They're coming back around. But yeah, as they're going in there, they find themselves like basically about to be completely surrounded. And Crassus sees Idiri, and he's like, she's not a dragon. She can't hang with us. I'm going to teleport her out of here and, you know, hopefully send her to a safe spot so she doesn't also get captured. And he does. He magically teleports her, and she kind of just snaps into consciousness, and she's like, where am I? And she looks around, and she sees a bunch of dwarves, and then she sees an elf who she's like, blood elf. So she goes to summon her staff, and this blood elf grabs her staff and rips it out of her hand. And like I said, she kind of choose to summon it and desummon it. So as soon as she rips it out of her hand, she's just like, yeah, desummoned. You don't have that anymore. And this is actually not a blood elf. And that's what she says. She's like, I'm not a blood elf. I'm a high elf. And this is Verisa Windrunner, the youngest of the three sisters.
The only one that doesn't go crazy?
I think Illyria doesn't go crazy, but maybe that's just my take.
What do you mean the void is in her head? The void is in her head, making her go crazy.
She keeps that thing on a leash.
That's what you think. That is what you think.
Hey, man, I watched her fight a Naru with the Void. I think she's got this. But
She'll
yes,
fall.
there is Verisa. She'll fall. But yeah, so they're like, hey, yeah, we're also here to investigate. It's just a fucking block party going down at Grim Batol. But they're here because Verisa is like, yeah, I'm actually here for Zendarin because he recently tried to kidnap my 2 children that I had with the mage Ronin. So she's here to get it back in blood, basically. And the other 2 dragons, like I said, they're taken prisoner. They're taken away to go essentially be prepared to be fed to this Twilight Drake. And that is where Iridi is like, all right, rescue mission begins now. 2 dragons in there we need to go save because they're cool guys. And I'm also beginning to sense another dragon in there that is calling out with like a tortured presence. So as they begin to go in there, they find that nether drake, like I mentioned, Ziraku. And they're set upon by like this crystalline guardian called a mage slayer who is like impervious to magic. Like it literally just consumes all magic anytime that it is hit. I guess not all magic, because then eventually Idiri is just like, I'm just going to free this dragon, because apparently for whatever reason, she's like, the chaos energy that this dragon's made of will probably be good enough to take him down. And it works. I'm going to be honest with you, this book's kind of ass, in my opinion. It's just kind of like throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks, but it is important, so we got to talk about it. But yeah, so they free this figure known as Ziraku. And with that, Sinestra senses this disturbance, and she's like, well, things are really popping off here. So with that being the case, she's like, take those 2 dragons that we're going to feed to the Twilight Drake and just leave them out in the open. Wait for them, the people to come and rescue them, and then we'll just capture everybody, and it'll be a grand feast for him. And it kind of goes like that. I mean, she does end up capturing them, and like with all of her Skardin, she outnumbers Verisa and these dwarves and captures them. But pretty much immediately, as soon as she arrives with all the other people, she's just like lockpicking herself out of there, and then she's out, and then she lockpicks everyone else out, and they're out, and they just bludgeon a guard to death with his own weapons. And yeah, they begin to take off, and is like running off in another direction, and the dwarves are like, nah, we should definitely get out of here. And she's like, gotta go get my cousin over there, so I'm gonna do that. You guys do whatever. And the dwarves, they end up actually going to see if they can't help the dragons themselves as well. So Verisa runs off to go find her cousin, and as she is doing this, Crassus and Malygos come face to face against this Twilight Dragon, the Darganax, and it's also completely immune to magic, which is interesting because it gives a lot of credit, in my opinion, to that theory that you had, because inside of this creature's chest is, you know how Idiri has a staff that is made from a Naru? They also had one of these staffs that they killed her twin for, and that's why she's also here, right? But it's corrupted by void, and anytime they shoot magic at it, it seems to just completely consume the magic. So a lot like that orb, right?
It is a lot like the orb. It is. We're getting somewhere.
So yeah,
I don't know, man.
No, dude, we're writing the story now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they go, and everybody is just brawling with this Twilight Dragon, and Idiri's like, maybe light'll work. And of course light works, right? She hits this crystal with the light and the creature's like, and then it gets dragon blasted in the face and it's like, and that's when Sinestra's like, alrighty then, I guess I'm gonna have to hop in. And she's still in like her human form and she's just like shooting shadow flame at people. And that's when another figure shows up. But apparently it's because they had Crassus had previously reached out to the Kirin Tor being like, hey, you might want to send some mages. I think shit's getting crazy over here. And that's when Ronan shows up. Husband to Verisa and also archmage of the Kirin Tor. Kind of a badass.
Is he a human?
Yes, he is a human.
Okay.
Like we said, the Windrunners they're down bad for humans.
Yeah, it seems like everyone. I don't know why. I think they just want the money from when they die. Honestly, dude. I can't see another reason.
But yeah, he literally shows up and he polymorphs Sinestra into a rat.
What?
He's like, you do that. And she's just like, it doesn't last long. I think it literally lasts like it would in an actual game. She just pops out of it and she's like, you fucking whelp. Why would you do that? But they're all brawling with this Twilight Dragon and holding off Sinestra as well. And that is when the Twilight Drake kind of gets the best of both Malygos and Crassus. And as it's like, oh no, they're going to die, Zeraku kind of has his moment of clarity where he remembers Tiragosa sticking her neck out for him and doing what she could to save his people. And he's like, I can be like her. And he goes diving at this Twilight Drake. And as he is wrestling with it, he does manage to basically put it down. And as it dies, it says that it both simultaneously implodes and explodes just like rapidly. So like parts of it like suck in and disappear, and other parts of it just literally blow parts of Grim Batol into pieces. And they're like, hey guys, Grim Batol, at least the main center room that we're in, coming down. We got to get out of here. And they're like, okay. So as they're trying to leave, Sinestra lets out one final attack that actually hits Zeraku, and he is just completely drained of energy. And as they're like, hey, we got to get out of here, Zeraku's just like, nah, that was the last of it. I'm staying here. So he goes down with the ship as Grim Batol collapses in on itself. It is presumed that Sinestra dies, but Verisa does catch up with Zendarian. And this is the part of the story I think is the worst, because she does catch up with him. And her whole thing for this whole story is that she's like, I need to kill him because of what he did, which is fair. I understand that. But then she gets in a fight with him, quickly overpowers him. And while the other dragons are fighting, it's like a rumble that gives him the opportunity to blink away, and he escapes and runs away. And she only like injures him, like he's bleeding, but you never see a body. And then Grim Batol collapses and they're all standing outside. And they're like, yeah, I'm sure that Sinestra is dead. I'm sure that Twilight Dragon's dead. And Verisa's like, for a moment, she's like, I wonder if he's dead. And she's like, nah, I'm certain of it. And I'm just sitting here like, have you never watched anything? No body, no kill. Okay.
Exactly. If you don't see a body, they're still alive. Even if you see a body, they're brought back 3 times like that.
Especially in this day and age, right? Darkon Wrathier, bro.
Yeah,
4 times. So, yeah. So that's kind of how that story ends. But it does introduce the Twilight Drakes, who will continue to be a problem moving into the next expansion, as well as it kind of brings the Black Dragons back towards the front and center stage, where we had a bit of a break from them for Outland. We're going to only get this kind of small story of them in Wrath of the Lich King, but as we move into the Cataclysm, oh boy, we'll definitely see more of them. So, remember the Twilight Dragons, remember Sinestra, and we'll check back in with them later, because now we got to move on to that actual Nexus War like I was talking about. Thank you for tuning in to Tides of Lore. If you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow adventurers. Your support makes all the difference. Thank you. After all the shit goes down, and Malygos has consumed those nether drakes like we talked about in the Outland episode, and all of Zeraku's kin, basically. It's said that he's giving clarity, which again, I don't believe that. I think this made him more insane, but it does give him, I guess, enough clarity to look around at the world. And specifically when he looks at the mortal races of Azeroth, like the humans, he's like, I'm thinking about the Highborn and how they turned this entire place into glass, and I'm thinking about the Highborn and how they completely, they basically opened the doorway for the Burning Legion multiple times, and I'm beginning to think, if it's my job to protect magic in the world, you shouldn't have it. So he basically declares war on all the mortal races of the world, saying, if you don't have my permission to use magic, I'm going to kill you and take it from you. And he sets all the blue dragons on this path as well. Not all the blue dragons, as we'll see. Like we talked about, Malygos is a pretty chill dude. Tiragosa's on Outland still, so she doesn't really fuck with that either. But yeah, that's what she's doing.
Now, and this is a rash decision. Very rash. Is he corrupted?
He's, I wouldn't say he's not corrupted like Deathwing's corrupted. He's not corrupted like...
Well, he's mad. We kill Malygos, right? Not to spoil anything, but obviously if you play Wrath of Lich King, he's a raid boss, like I was talking about, and I have Eternity. We fight him. But you don't just kill such a... What is he? The leader of the Blue Dragonflight.
Yep. The essence of magic.
Like, I feel like he did go mad at some point.
Well, he did go mad, but like I said, I don't think he's corrupted. I think he went mad because he saw his entire flight get blown up by Deathwing when he unleashed the Dragon Soul during the War of the Ancients. I think he went mad because he would, see the like I just said, the mortal races basically being wanton with magic. And it's also stated that he's slumbered for a lot of the time frame that he's been away. Like he's been kind of like reclused and hidden away in the Nexus for a lot of the years between the War of the Ancients and the modern World of Warcraft. And as he wakes up, he realizes that spellcasters aren't just using more magic, but they're significantly more powerful at using it nowadays too. So what they're doing more and more is, in his eyes, throwing magic out of balance. So
healers have gotten more powerful too. I don't know. Because you think of life magic, time magic, right? We also use those, but those dragonflights haven't gone and stopped us.
Yep, but that's because Snorsdorm was fucking chill, and Alexstrasza wants to preserve life at all costs.
Yeah.
So what does he do? He's like, to ensure permanent control, I'm going to pull up this map that I have. He was given this map called the Arcanenomicon, and it was gifted to him by the Titan Keeper Norganon when he was actually empowered into a dragon. And it's basically a magical map that shows you all of the ley lines on Azeroth. We've spoke about the ley lines a few times. They are the arcane veins of Azeroth. Basically, they run all across Azeroth. That's where Karazhan was built. That's where Quel'Thalas was built, because these are places where these ley lines intersect and are very magically powerful.
Have to do with the soul of Azeroth? Or
yes, it actually does.
Okay. Because is it like the veins of the world almost? Basically,
yeah. I mean, if we even remember when Yasharaz was ripped out and he was like, his injury was causing Azeroth to bleed, it was bleeding out arcane lifeblood. And I'm assuming this is basically the same thing, right? So maybe not as powerful, but you get the idea. So he sees these ley lines and he's like, okay, I'm going to use my knowledge of all these ley lines to basically cut off the rest of the world and have them all just channel into my place over here at the Nexus. And he does that. And like you said, he doesn't necessarily, because when they empowered the dragon aspects, they didn't tell them the full story of what's going on with Azeroth. And it's kind of also, like you mentioned, where we're getting some of these inclinations that maybe this whole awakening Azeroth and the World Soul stuff might not be as cool as we want it to be, or maybe they just didn't think that the dragon aspects needed to know that much info. But as he begins to suck all of this magic energy out of the world and channel it into the Nexus, he doesn't realize that he is throwing this dormant world soul out of whack, and it begins to cause like all of these planetary catastrophes across the world. They begin to like rip open, and you'll, like when you're in Dragonblight, you'll see all these like veins of magical energies just kind of leaking out into the world now. And he doesn't care, because, that's his magic, and as long as the mortals aren't using it, he's cool with that. And with that being the case, he is like, all right, now it's time to go and fight those mortal races that I specifically hate, and the ones that I hate the most are those damn Kirin Tor of Dalaran. And you might be asking, wait, Dalaran, didn't that place get blown up during the Third War? Yes. But during that time span, they put this big magical bubble over top of it for 2 expansions. Or I guess two instances of World of Warcraft. And during that time, they were rebuilding Dalaran. And after they finally got it all up and working, the whole Wrath of the Lich King stuff kicks off. And they're like, I think we can help. So they collect all of their most powerful mages. So I'm assuming Ronin's there, Madera's there, Khadgar's there. Everybody who is somebody to the Kirin Tor is probably there. And they teleport the entire city and move it to Northrend. And it just flies in the sky there.
Pretty cool. It reminds me of Borderlands Sanctuary.
Ooh,
you know,
I love Sanctuary, bro.
Lilith bringing that up. Scooter yelling, "Catch a ride!
Catch a ride!" I will say, that's something maybe I feel like it was missing, because like we don't see this event happen. I don't think. I think that it just kind of like you start Wrath of the Lich King and then Dalaran's there, right?
And it's kind of there. Well, and you also, because in Classic and TBC, you saw that bubble above it. Like it was pretty obvious that is something. And yeah, it just kind of appeared. Though yep. I will say they've done better. Like War Within Dalaran, dude. I don't. When I first started War Within, I was hyped when that cinematic in the beginning happened.
And what I mean is, I just like I wish, because like in Borderlands, spoilers, Borderlands 2 for a game that came out in 2011, by the way. There is a scene where Sanctuary's under attack. They put up this big bubble shield, and then they basically just fly that thing away, and you get to see it happen. You're standing outside as you watch Sanctuary disappear. And I wish we could have just got to see something like that for Dalaran. Like we get to see it in Legion when you do move Dalaran once again, but it's just I wish I could have seen it rip that crater out of fucking.
You're talking about a time where the only cinematic we had was the Wrath Gate, so
and that hasn't even happened yet.
I know.
Yeah, but I do feel that. I guess I'm putting it on my never to happen wish list. But yeah, they're like, all right, we're going to take the entirety of Dalaran over to Northrend, because not only will that give us easier access to fight these blue dragons, but we're also going to help out in the offensive against this Lich King figure. Thank God you guys are finally doing something. I think about them in like the Second War, and I'm like, what were you guys doing when the orcs were just rampaging through everything?
I wanted to stay neutral.
So this does happen, and there is like a comic that is kind of covering this area. Like I mentioned, I didn't really know that there were class comics. I didn't know that there was a Death Knight comic before I read it for the last episode. I didn't know there was a mage comic for this instance where they're in the floating city of Dalaran and they're under attack by these blue dragons. And I'm not really going to talk about it because, one, the character never comes back, and two, it's kind of a shit story as well. But note that the blue dragons do attack the city, and basically the whole plot of that story is to stop them from attacking the city. And they do. I mean, there are some instances where these blue dragons get in, like the Violet Hold dungeon that you'll end up doing, where the blue dragons like releasing all of these Kirin Tor prisoners that they have in these magical barriers, and then you have to fight this blue dragon. But yeah, the mages of Dalaran, with, like I said, pretty much all the coolest mages that they have there, they do manage to push back these blue dragons. And that does make sense to me, because we just, like, what we know about the blue dragons is that there are very, very, very few of them left. But yeah, with this happening, the other dragonflights, they meet up at the Wormrest Temple, which we mentioned was kind of where the dragons go to meet. It was built by the Titans, this spire that's in Dragonblight. And they all meet up there. And all of the Alexstrasza, Ysera, Nozdormu, and the representative for the Blue Flight at this time, who's going to be Malygos, shows up. And they're like, hey guys, we should work together because it looks like another one of us has gone off the chain. And Alexstrasza specifically remembers back to Ronin helping free her when she was captured in Grim Batol. And she, after that instance, made a promise. She was like, any one of the races that tried to save me from this captivity and whatnot, when you need us, we will be there. Well, they're blowing the horn of Gondor. They need you. So Alexstrasza convinces all the other dragonflights and even some of these blue dragons, like I said, Malygos, to join the war, the Nexus War, against the blue dragons. And they also reach out to the Horde and Alliance, and it just says that Bolvar and Garrosh are just like, Nah, we got things that we're worrying about over here with all these undead. You guys got it.
So it's
And,
not canon that we actually help them?
No, it's just that once we arrive in Northrend, that blue dragons start blowing us the fuck up too, and they're like, maybe we should help.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so they're like, yeah, I guess we don't really have a choice. So they join up in this war as well. Now it's basically everybody versus the blue dragons, and that's kind of where you'll move into doing some of the quest lines in like the Coldarra area and stuff like that, where you'll do the quest line for Crystallize, who ends up having you like help to lure one of Malygos' mates out and murder her. And you do, and it goes well. We're all celebrating, probably got some sick loot out of it, maybe a blue, who knows. And then Malygos is like, oh, well, that was the person who makes my eggs, so I guess I'm going to kidnap this red dragon and turn you into my mate now? I don't know how that works. I don't. But that is why that she's like, this red dragon is then like branded with these magical runes all over her body. And if you do run that dungeon, the Nexus, you might have wondered, why are we killing a red dragon at the end of this dungeon? That's why. Because she goes even crazier from the amount of torture that Malygos puts on her, to the point where it's just like, yeah, you gotta go too. Sorry. And it is kind of bittersweet, because when you really think about it, it's like you're the same person that helped her to achieve her goals, and now you have to be the same person that puts her down.
Well, it also, this all explains, like in the Oculus, in the Eye of Eternity, why you're riding green, red, and yellow, I don't know, time dragons,
Bronze.
you know?
Yeah.
Bronze, yeah, exactly. I never knew that's like, they literally all teamed up against this blue flight with us to do it. And I mean, obviously I saw us riding the dragons, but now this all connects it all.
Yes, sir. And that all leads into the climax of the Nexus War, where, like we talked about, everything's all set up. Malygos is hiding off in essentially a pocket dimension, because when you do go into the Eye of Eternity, it's like this, you're like standing on a platform in the middle of space. Think kind of Thanos in the very first Avengers film, where he's just like in the middle of fucking nowhere. Awesome place. I reran this dungeon recently with Bub, and I was just like, dang, you know, I don't know if this raid ever got as much love as it deserved, because one, people hated vehicle combat, and fair, it was ass. But two, it was also just a single boss raid. Like, it wasn't, there was no trash, or there was nothing really leading up to it. It was just Malygos.
Dropped some sick stuff. Black Ice, I remember. Oh my gosh, that was a sick pole arm.
I really loved how Wrath of the Lich King started introducing a bunch of the like effects on weapons and stuff like that. I feel like you see it a lot more in Ulduar and stuff like that, but just having them have like these electric effects and these glowing arcane effects, it just felt more powerful. Because like I feel like some of like the coolest staffs and stuff that you get even in the classic instance, like the Staff of Jordan, it's only really just like a stick. It has like some crystals floating around it, but it doesn't really look like anything too crazy.
Started getting cool mounts too. The dragon mounts, the Twilight mount. Oh, dude, I mean, I assume we'll talk about the raid underneath Wormrest Temple, but I remember winning that mount. Good times, man.
I've also been running that recently because I want transmog, so I've just been doing world tours occasionally, just hitting raids that I can.
Fuck it, dude.
Yes, sir. But yeah, that comes down to the final confrontation with Malygos, and Alexstrasza pulls up to this fight. The heroes of Azeroth pull up to this fight, and you battle like any raid. You win the mechanics, you defeat the boss, Red is dead, you get your loot, and as Malygos dies, he basically says his last words to Alexstrasza, and he just questions her. He's like, why do you have so much faith in the mortal races? Do you not see that these people are going to ruin the world? And she, you know, is sorrowful about it. She doesn't want to have had to do this. She loves all life. But to save more lives, she had to do this. So she, as he dies, he goes, says no more. She retrieves what is called the Heart of Magic. And it's like this artifact that is said to have been contained within Malygos himself. And it is like essentially, they don't know this, but it still even contains the essence of Malygos even after they kill him, kind of the spirit of it, right? And she hands it off to Crassus. She's like, keep this safe. And what they don't realize is that even inside this artifact, Malygos is still conscious. And not only that, he can magically like understand the thoughts and emotions of the people who are around it. So he does begin to kind of question if what he was doing was right, because he begins to feel the sorrow and the grief of his friends and former allies that he has, in their eyes, that he's betrayed. And he begins to go, like, yeah, like I said, question, was I really the betrayer? Did I cause all of this? Was I the enemy, like Neltharion in the end? And then he remembers his death at the hands of Alexstrasza and the rest of the mortals, and he's like, nah, fuck y'all.
I was right all around, along. Basically. It's like that the Simpsons meme of Skinner. No, the kids are wrong. The kid.
Am I wrong? No, it's society that's the problem.
Yeah. Now, did Malygos take the head of the blue dragonflight right after, or was this down the line that Malygos came into power?
So, yeah, it says shortly after Malygos dies, Alexstrasza officially calls it and says, like, Nexus Wars are over. And at this time, they once again meet back up at the Wormrest Accord, and they do ascend Malygos into the next aspect of the Blue Flight, which is another really long story that we're going to be talking about for 4 expansions, something like that. Cataclysm, Mists,
it's just crazy,
obviously. Yeah,
crazy the difference of leadership from Malygos to Malygos. Like, they're two. Malygos, like you said, he's just a chill guy, dude.
Well, and it is also that Malygos has just seen so much. He's been around for 30,000, 40,000 years, and it's said that Malygos is pretty young. He's probably still under like 1,000 years old or something like that. So I guess he's kind of like the exact opposite of Garrosh in a way, where he's like the more rational minded because he hasn't been so jaded by the world.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to call Malygos jaded as fuck.
But that is kind of the conclusion of the Nexus War. Though we do got a little bit more dragon stuff we got to talk about. Like you mentioned, the Wormrest Temple. It has these spots underneath it known as the sanctums. And each of the dragonflights has a sanctum in there. So there's an emerald sanctum, there's a ruby sanctum for each of these dragons. And during this war, there was Grim Batol kind of seeing the Twilight Drakes. Deathwing has his spies or has his eyes on what's going on at all times, preparing for his arrival soon. And he sees this Twilight Drake, so he goes to Grim Batol after it collapses, and he collects any of them that he can find. And he basically is like, yeah, guys, you need to, do the thing where you go hide these until they can grow into cool people. And the red dragons hear about this. Obviously, we've talked about this for a while, but the dragons all hate the black dragons, and their whole kind of purpose for the longest time was to just murder all the black dragons they could find. So they find out Twilight Dragon eggs underneath the Wormrest Temple inside the previous obsidian sanctum that was the kind of space for the black dragons before they were basically exiled from the rest of the group. And during this time, all of these dragons are like, yeah, we're really handling a ton with, cleaning up the mess that Malygos made. We're handling a ton with the Scourge fight and whatnot. How about we just hit up those mages that we just helped out and see if they can't handle it? And they call up the Council of Six, who are the leader of the Kirin Tor. They're like, hey, guys, you got any more of those adventurers who need good loot? And I imagine that they then turned and looked at Dalaran City being completely filled with people. And they're like, I think we got a few. And they're like, okay, heroes of Azeroth, you need to go and handle these dragon eggs that are underneath the Wormrest Temple. And Red is dead. We do that. So we head over there. You encounter the black dragon Sartharion, and he has some Twilight Drakes around him by the name of Vesperion and Shadron and Tenebron, LeBron. And they aren't as crazy big as Dragonix or Dargonix was, but they seem to have grown very fast as well. They're the size of basically the black dragon that stands before you. And Red is dead. We go in there. We kill this black dragon. If you kill him before you kill any of those purple dudes, you get a mount for it. Well, and
can I talk about that real quick?
Yeah, go for it. I didn't do this when it was current,
so what you just said isn't 100% correct. It somewhat is. So you go directly to the boss, and it pulls everything.
Yeah, that
Everything.
is something I forgot to mention.
It was crazy back in the day. I played in Wrath, like when Wrath was actual Wrath, not Wrath Classic, and I got that fucking mount. I won it out of 25 people, and I just remember that fight being hard as shit back in the day because you couldn't kill. There's like 4 different bosses and trash, I think, too. I forget if you can kill the trash. I don't remember.
I think you could technically kill the trash. I remember watching these videos.
Yeah.
Like I said, I started in Mist, and there were still tutorials for this sort of stuff, so I was watching it. And I'm pretty sure you were allowed to kill the trash, but you couldn't kill any of the other bosses, yeah.
But still, though, it was insane. But I remember winning that mount and being so happy. But now, literally, you could just go and one-shot the boss and get the mount. So it's like the mount isn't prestigious anymore. But dude, when I was riding that shit back in the day, I felt so cool on my hunter. I was a night elf hunter.
To talk about mounts just a little bit more too. You remember you ran the Eye of Eternity too, and you got both the Azure and the Blue Drake from it, right? At one time?
So I got killing it not at one time. Killing it for the first time ever, I got one of the mounts.
Okay. I got both.
Maybe. Oh, you got both. That's what it was. Yeah, I got it
I thought
first
you also
time,
did
one
it.
of the mounts.
Well, and
not
then I went
both.
and checked the WoW head for it to see. I'm like, is it just like, do they not update the drop rate on it? And there were a couple of people who were like, yeah, I just got both. I got both. So I was under the impression that like they had, and that it was like pretty common to get both. And then I ran it with Bub a few times, and he doesn't have any of them still. So I'm like, is this where all my luck for years went?
Yep. There it is. Got drained.
Yes, sir. Sent off into the Nexus.
Yeah.
But yeah, you go into the Obsidian Sanctum, you clear that out. You hear that they're also assaulting the Ruby Sanctum, which is where the red dragons go to hang out. So you head in there, you kill a few more black dragons and like some of these dragonkin, which are like those 4-legged big chunky dudes that have glaives and stuff like that. And you clear that place out. That's just a dungeon, so it's nothing really crazy. It doesn't really have dialogue, I don't think. But with that being the case, you now have secured the Wormrest Temple, and it officially begins what is known as the Wormrest Accord, which is, like I said, the 4 flights were already kind of working together for the purpose of being like, yep, we're all a team, you know, one team, one dream. But now it's like an official thing. They've basically created their UN. And they're like, all right, we're all going to work together for the betterment of Azeroth. And this is what the Wormrest Accord is. And that is, and that is pretty much all that we have to talk about today.
It's just crazy. You think of Wrath of the Lich King, and you think of undead armies, and of course Arthas. But it's crazy. Like literally, the last patch of Wrath of the Lich King is not assaulting Icecrown Citadel. Yeah. It's literally Ruby Sanctum. That is the last raid in Wrath of the Lich King, and I think a lot of people forgot that until Wrath of the Lich King Classic came out. They're like, oh shit, no, there's another patch after Icecrown Citadel.
Yep.
So and it's just the dragons played a big part in Wrath, and a lot of people forget about that.
I mean, like we also mentioned just with the Burning Crusade stuff, like Burning Crusade, it feels very light. It feels like a lot of the zones kind of link together. The stories kind of link together. It's almost its own singular zone. But with Wrath of the Lich King, it's like you're in Dragonblight. It's all this crazy shit going on with the dragons. You're in the Grizzly Hills, and it's all about these wild gods. And it's just so much more vast in Northrend. Every zone feels like it has an in-depth story that is super, like, more, like, way more intricate than a lot of the stuff that we get in the Burning Crusade.
A lot of Titan story. Too. Like, I mean, you think about dragons are Titan Titan creations, right?
Yep.
You have Sholazar Basin, very Titan heavy. You have not the Ice Crown, but to the right of it,
the Sons of Hodir.
Yeah, exactly. That zone, that is very Titan heavily inspired. It's a very Titan X-Pack.
And I mean, even as I think about it more and more, like, you really don't do too much undead stuff until you actually reach Ice Crown, and you're actually doing, you know, Wrathgate. You're doing.
I mean, you have new Rubian conflicts, and
you're right,
and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I guess when I think about it, like the actual undead and stuff like that, it's like, dang, I feel like I don't fight too many skeletons until I'm doing the Argent Crusade or the Argent Crusade storylines.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is our first kind of major storyline that leads into the Wrath of the Lich King. We're going to start moving into, like you said, some old god stuff. We're going to start moving into some Lich King stuff. We got some trolls. We got Nerubians. It's going to be a lot. And I love Wrath.
We can almost go zone by zone, right? You know, you talked about Coldarra, and that was one of the first zone. Well, it's not technically Coldarra. It's Borean Tundra that you go to. But Coldarra is right. It's like in the same zone, but it's like a sub zone. But yeah, that's like your first place. So like then we can go to, zone by zone. Almost.
So we're probably gonna we'll see what we talk about. I think we're gonna talk more faction stuff next time, just kind of leading up to the conflict with the actual Lich King himself before we maybe dive into some side stories. But we'll see where the journey takes us. But if you guys did make it this far, make sure you drop us a like, a sub. Your guys' support has been crazy, and we really do appreciate it, and we'd love to see more. So we hope to see you guys back here next week. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this episode. Your guys' support truly means the world to us. If you're interested in hearing more, we have our full show on YouTube and Spotify, new episodes dropping every Tuesday. I also want to take this moment to give a special thank you to Fantasy Lo-Fi for providing the music for this episode. You can find them on YouTube at Fantasy Lo-Fi or on Spotify under Bits and Hits. Be sure to show them some love, as their music does truly bring this journey to life. Once again, thank you for joining us on Tides of Lore, and we will see you next week.